traditional poetry out loud snowstorm. Happens almost every time, except one. There was this poetry out loud competition that some of you might remember. Happened 3 years ago, and things were very different after that day. A lot of attendees and participants said it was the last thing they did. Our last in-person Poetry Out Loud was March 7th of 2020. We had some sanitizer on hand, some boxes of Kleenex because we didn't know what else to do. And then 10 days later, we stopped seeing one another. So when I say welcome, I really mean it. It's so wonderful to be in the room with all of you, to have our judges, our guest judges back in the room and not having to review poems online, which they were so kind to do during the pandemic, but it wasn't that much fun, let's face it. So this will be a much better day, and it's always a great day when, you know, as my job, if you can call it a job, I get to listen to poetry all day long. And so it's just a treat for me. Participants, I've had the opportunity to see many of you at the regionals, and I can say that you are all very much ready for this day. You are going to be fabulous, and I know that you're going to have fun, provided you don't let those nerves take over, right? So I'm just very excited for all of you, and I do want to mention that this is the 18th year of this program, and if you don't know anything about the Poetry Out Loud program, it was initiated, originated, and still run by the National Endowment for the Arts, which kindly created the program and a grant to go along with it and doled it out to all these state arts agencies, of which Montana Arts Council is one. So for 18 years in Montana, we've had the Montana Poetry Out Loud. From this competition, sadly, only one of these wonderful individuals sitting in the seats below will be going on to Washington, D.C. to represent our state. So there is a competitive element to this, but as I told the competitors last night, they really are all winners. I know it sounds like just a kind of a cliche kind of thing to say, but the reality is, you know, you're going to see some really wonderful recitations, and you're going to wonder, how is it that the judges are going to make the call? And I think they'll all agree with me right from the get-go that it's anybody's guess. They hand in their score sheets, and usually at the end of the day, they're like, I have no idea who's going to win, you know, because there's a rubric that they are following, but there's also, you know, every judge sees a little bit of something different. So, so just a very interesting competition. So thank you in advance here today to all the teachers and parents that helped these students prepare for today. And we are just really grateful for all the support this program gets. My name is Monica Grable, and I am the Arts Education Director at the Montana Arts Council. And I have the great fortune to administer this program for our state arts agency. A couple of logistics I want to mention. There is a set of restrooms basically just below that staircase down there. So if you take the stairs at the back of the auditorium of the theater, it'll lead you right there. You just have to kind of go around the corner. For participants, I want you to know that right here in this last seat is the prompter. The prompter is going to change throughout the day because I just like variety. So every round there's going to be a different prompter, but there's a little sign there to remind you that that's where the prompter is. And just as a reminder to you participants, she is not going to prompt you unless you ask for a prompt, okay? And you can be subtle about it, but I know that you've all received this bit of advice. Don't jump to asking for a prompt because it's an automatic deduction. So maybe artfully and stylistically you can make it seem like it's just a pause, you know? like just a pause that you meant to throw in there instead of, a blaring light, like, oh, I'm making a mistake. Just like breathe a little bit, just give yourself a chance to recall it. Sometimes our nerves get the better of us, and it's happened to every person in this room, all the adults included. So we also owe a debt of gratitude to Drumlin Institute, which sponsored our judges' dinner last night. Every year when we do this, we bring judges from across the state, and it's just a really nice opportunity for them to get, kind of geared up for the experience, spend some time and get to know one another. So we want to thank Drumlin for that. I also want to introduce the judges, and I know you don't have a lot of room down there, but could you all, as I call your name, just kind of turn around as best you can. If you could stand up, great. If you can't, that's fine. Mark Gibbons has been a part of Poetry Out Loud for all the years. There may have been one or two, maybe a snowstorm that kept him from it, but pretty much he's been in it from the get-go, and he also happens to be our poet laureate at present. So, Mark. Aaron Parrott has also been involved in Poetry Out Loud for quite some time, and he is a professor at Providence University in Great Falls, and also is involved in more arts things than I think anybody I know. He's a fiddler, musician, songwriter, and happens to be the executive director of Drumlin Institute as well. So Aaron, thank you. Anna Page made it here all the way from Billings yesterday, and on dry roads until she got outside Helena. How strange is that? Anna is so many things. She's an artist herself, a poet. She's a teaching artist, going into the schools to share poetry with students. She's a fabulous arts journalist, and probably too many other things to mention, but thank you so much for making the trip. Julian Wildman is a multidisciplinary artist, primarily focused in dance, but also has had her hands in many, many things. And I had the great fortune to get to know Julian through a program we call the Montana Teacher Leaders for the Arts, which she participated in. And that is a professional development program for teachers that are really out there trying to advocate really for more arts of every kind. So she is wildly creative, and we're just so happy to have you here. Thank you so much. Donna Davis is our accuracy judge today. She is a former professor, lawyer, poet, writer, so many things. And we are very, very fortunate, Donna, to have you in our midst and sharing this day with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And down at the end there, we have Maisie Parrott, who is going to be our runner, which means that she's going to grab up all the judges' sheets and take them to the tally table where my lovely daughter Hannah is sitting, waiting to input them into the computer. So there you have it. I hope I didn't leave anybody out. As you can see, we have ASL interpretation happening at Poetry Out Loud today, which is like the thing I can finally check the box. I think the last time we tried, there was a big snowstorm and it didn't happen, so here we are. And so we'll have 3 ASL interpreters today, so I'm very happy to have you all here. Thank you. So to get our ears and mind tuned in to poetry, we have what we call the calibration round. It serves a couple of purposes. Like I said, it kind of tunes our ear, gets us ready to really listen intently. Today, it gives one of our guest judges a chance to share a poem they'd like to share, especially with our participants. And it's a chance for the judges to kind of go through the motions. If they so choose, you can use one of the blank sheets. And, I don't think Donna needs to be scored, but, if you want to, pretend like you're scoring, that would be that would be great. So Donna, if you would please come up. Fix that mic any way you need it.
We're good. We're good. Of Mere Being by Wallace Stevens. The palm at the end of the mind, beyond the last thought, rises in the bronze decor. A gold-feathered bird sings in the palm without human meaning, without human feeling, a foreign song. You know then that it is not the reason that makes us happy or unhappy. The bird sings, its feathers shine. The palm stands on the edge of space. The wind moves slowly in the branches. The bird's fire-fangled feathers dangle down. Mona asked me why this was such an important poem. It's the best Zen koan ever written in modern times. Do a close reading and you'll understand. And secondly, it has the very best line of poetry in the English language from the 20th century. The bird's fire-fangled feathers dangle down. Thank you.
That was brilliant, Donna. Thank you so much. Prior to joining the Arts Council staff, just over 6 years ago, I had a couple of careers split into. I spent equal parts as an arts presenter, meaning working with a community organization to present performing arts, live performing arts to the community. And I also spent 14 and a half years as a visual art teacher, mostly at the high school level, some middle school. It was a real joy. I have had the great fortune to get to know many, many talented and special students over those years in 3 different schools. In my graduate work, there was a class on creativity, I remember, the term that they liked to use often was capital C creative. It was like an extra special way of denoting somebody who had more than the average talent, but also maybe somebody who was just in general a creative thinker before you ever put any medium in their hand. The person I'm about to introduce you to, I consider a capital C creative. She landed in my classroom, 8 years ago maybe, and was just a ray of sunshine. I could not stop talking about this new kid in my class who was just ready for anything, ready to try anything, so creative. And I'll just let the cat out of the bag right here and say that teachers maybe are not supposed to have their favorites, but the people who say that probably have never taught before, because we're all human. I very much cared about each and every one of my students, but you have those bright spots that kind of go above and beyond, and those people stay with you. So recently, when I walked into Butterfly Herbs in Missoula and saw Aaliyah there, I was just overjoyed to see her and get caught up. So right now, as our MC for the rest of the rounds, I would like to introduce you to one of my favorite students of all time, Aaliyah Jordan.
We'll be inviting our first reader up here, Alette Whitcomb. Alette is in the 9th grade at Hellgate High School in Missoula. She is a fan of the author Adrienne Young and the Broadway musical Hamilton. Her plans beyond high school are to attend college out of state and study creative writing, dance, music, and theater for the possible pursuit of environmental studies.
Songs for the People by Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. Let me make the songs for the people, songs for the old and young, songs to stir like a battle cry wherever they are sung, not for the clashing of sabers, for carnage, nor for strife, but songs to thrill the hearts of men with more abundant life. Let me make the songs for the weary, amid life's fever and fret, till hearts shall relax their tension and careworn brows forget. Let me sing for little children before their footsteps stray, sweet anthems of love and duty to float o'er life's highway. I would sing for the poor and aged when shadows dim their sight, of the bright and restful mansions where there shall be no night. Our world, so worn and weary, needs music pure and strong to hush the jangle and discords of sorrow, pain, and wrong. Music to soothe all its sorrow, till war and crime shall cease, and the hearts of men grown tender girdle the world with peace.
Next on stage, we'll be inviting up Brian Keener. Brian is in his senior year at Flathead High School and participates in speech and debate and theater. Brian is easily connected with his first poem selection, drawn to his theme of finding someone long lost.
Where Did the Handsome Beloved Go? By Jalal al-Din Rumi, translated by Brad Gooch. Where did the handsome beloved go? I wonder. Where did the tall, shapely cypress tree go? He spread his light among us like a candle. Where did he go? So strange. Where did he go without me? All day long, my heart trembles like a leaf, all alone at midnight. Where did that beloved go? Go to the road and ask any passing traveler, that soul-stirring companion, where did he go? Go to the garden and ask the gardener, that tall, shapely rose stem, where did he go? Go to the rooftop and ask the watchman, that unique sultan, where did he go? Like a madman, I searched in the meadows, that deer in the meadows, where did he go? My tearful eyes overflow like a river. That pearl in the vast sea, where did he go? All night long, I implore both moon and Venus, that lovely face like the moon, where did he go? If he is mine, why is he with others? Since he is not here, to what there did he go? If his heart and soul are joined with God, and he left this realm of earth and water, where did he go? Tell me clearly, Shams of Tabriz, of whom it is said the sun never dies. Where did he go?
Next up, Gracie Theo Watson. Gracie attends Belt High School and is currently in the 10th grade. She is considering studying medicine beyond high school to pursue an interest in the field of radiology. Gracie says she was drawn to her first poem because it implores her to think deeply about the imagery.
I Remember by Thomas Hood. I remember the house where I was born, the little window where the sun came peeping in at morn. He never came a wink too soon, nor brought too long a day. But now, I often wish the night had borne my breath away. I remember the roses, red and white, the violets and the lily cups, those flowers made of light. The violets where the robin built, and where my brother set the laburnum on his birthday. The tree is living yet. I remember where I was used to swing, and thought the air must rush as fresh to swallows on the wing. My spirit flew in feathers then, that is so heavy now. And summer cool pools could hardly cool the fever on my brow. I remember the fir trees dark and high. I used to think their slender tops were close against the sky. It was a childish ignorance. But now 'tis little joy to know I'm farther up from heaven than when I was a boy.
All right, next up we have Maya Dare. She's a junior at Butte High School and college bound. Maya's favorite film is Spirited Away due to its exceptional, beautiful animation and storytelling, and follows Dr. Seuss's saying as her motto: don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened.
Love Song by Dorothy Parker. My own dear love, he is strong and bold, and he cares not what comes after. His words ring sweet as a chime of gold, and his eyes are lit with laughter. He is jubilant as a flag unfurled. Oh, a girl, she'd not forget him. My own dear love, he is all my world, and I wish I'd never met him. My love, he's mad, and my love, he's fleet, and a wild young wood thing bore him. The ways are fair to his roaming feet, and the skies are sunlit for him. As sharply sweet to my heart he seems as the fragrance of acacia. My own dear love, he is all my dreams. And I wish he were in Asia. My love runs by like a day in June, and he makes no friends of sorrows. He'll tread his galloping rigadoon in the pathway of the morrows. He'll live his days where the sunbeams start, nor could storm or wind uproot him. My own dear love, he is all my heart. And I wish somebody'd shoot him.
Next, we'll welcome to the stage Rio Thielen. Rio is in the 9th grade at Missoula's Hellgate High School and plans to pursue college, beyond high school, and eventually become an author of fiction novels. In addition to that, he wants to direct or have a role in movies based on books so that they may be accurate, moving representations of what my readers have read. Rio's favorite quote from the great Stan Lee is, "With great power comes great responsibility."
Wind, Water, Stone by Octavio Paz. Water hollows stone, wind scatters water, stone stops the wind, water, wind, stone. Wind carves its stone, stone's a cup of water, water escapes and is wind. Oh, stone, wind, water. Wind sings as it whips, water murmurs going by. Unmoving stone stays still. Wind, water, stone. Each is another and no other, crossing and vanishing through their empty names. Stone, water, stone, wind.
All right, next up is Lily Johnson. Lily is a Sims sophomore who includes among her favorite books the poetry collection Honey and Glass by Savannah Lynn Thompson. Lily's post-high school plans include studies in nursing and psychology and is inspired by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Quote, "It's not the length of life, but the depth of life."
Semi-Splendid by Tracy K. Smith. You flinch. Something flickers, not fleeing your face. My heart hammers at the ceiling, telling my tongue to turn it down. Too late. The something climbs, leaps, is falling now across us like the prank of an icy, brainy lord. I chose the wrong word. I am wrong for not choosing merely to smile, to pull you towards me and away from what you think of as the other me who wanders lost among. Among whom? The many, the rare. I wish you didn't care. I watch you watching her. Her very shadow is a rage that trashes the room of your eyes. Do you claim surprise at what she wants? That poor girl pelted with despair who flits from grief to grief. Isn't it you she seeks? And if you blame her, know that she blames you for choosing not her, but me. Love is never fair. But do we, should we, care?
Next will be Mac Williams. Mac is a Butte High School sophomore who is compelled by the message of his favorite movie, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. That the audience to rise up and act for themselves before anyone else, lest they experience emotional and mental damage. And driven by the John Keating quote, "Carpe diem, seize the day, boys, make your life extraordinary."
The World is Too Much with Us by William Wordsworth. The world is too much with us, late and soon, getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Little we see in nature that is ours, we have given our hearts away, a sordid boon, this sea that bears her bosom to the moon. The winds that will be howling at all hours, and are upgathered now, like sleeping flowers. For this, for everything, we are out of tune. It moves us not. Great God, I'd rather be a pagan, suckled in a creed outworn. So might I, standing on this pleasant lea, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn, have sight of Proteus rising from the sea. Or hear old Triton blow his wreathed horn.
Next, we welcome Gabriella Shaw. Gabriella is a junior at Chrysalis School and a huge fan of the works of Dan Brown. She found her first poem in the Poetry Out Loud anthology and was soon drawn to it when she came to realize the importance of connections to her childhood as a big contributor to who she is now.
I Remember by Thomas Hood. I remember the house where I was born, the little window where the sun came peeping in at morn. He never came a wink too soon, nor brought too long a day, but now I often wish the night had borne my breath away. I remember the roses, red and white, the violets and the lily cups, those flowers made of light, the lilacs where the robin built, and where my brother set the laburnum on his birthday, the tree is living yet. I remember where I was used to swing, and thought the air must rush as fresh to swallows on the wing. My spirit flew in feathers then, that is so heavy now, and summer pools could hardly cool the fever on my brow. I remember the fir trees, dark and high. I used to think their slender tops were close against the sky. It was childish ignorance, and now 'tis little joy to know I'm farther off from heaven than when I was a boy.
Next on stage is Isabel Bennett. Isabel is a junior at Flathead High School and is considering a gap year before college in order to travel with possible studies in stage engineering to follow. She lives by a personal motto of whatever happens, happens.
American Smooth by Rita Dove. We were dancing. It must have been a foxtrot or a waltz, something romantic but requiring restraint. Rise and fall, precise execution as we moved into the next song without stopping. Two chests heaving above a 7-league stride. Such perfect agony. One learns to smile through, ecstatic mimicry being the sine qua non of American Smooth. And because I was distracted by the effort of keeping my frame, the leftward lean had turned just enough to gaze out past your ear, and always smiling. I didn't notice how still you'd become until we had done it. For 2 measures, 4, achieved flight, that swift and serene magnificence, before the earth remembered who we were and brought us down.
Next on is Taryn Lodge. Taryn is a senior at Bell High School and is a fan of the excellent fantasy fiction by Brandon Sanderson and the musical Hamilton for its mixture of history and drama. She would like to go to law school and become an attorney.
The Arrow and the Song. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me try again. The Arrow and the Song by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I shot an arrow into the air. It fell to earth, I knew not where. For so swiftly it flew, the sight could not follow in its flight. I breathed a song into the air, and it fell to earth, I knew not where. For who has sight so keen and strong that it could follow the flight of a song? Long, long afterward, in an oak, I found the arrow, still unbroke, and the song, from beginning to end, I found again in the heart of a friend.
We will now be introducing Peyton Waters to the stage. Peyton is a Butte High School junior and a fan of Stephen King's writing, Mr. Harrigan's Phone in particular, as well as a film adaptation of his work, Misery. She is a believer in the mantra, expect the unexpected.
Y2K by Therese Lloyd. When I was in despair,
the dark days when I actually used such terms, I noticed the behavior of animals. Sleep when tired, eat when hungry. It made so much sense to me. And yet, I felt so different. I felt my humanness too much. No fly ever wonders whether it's going to make lots and lots of maggots. It gives birth on amount of cat food or inside the rubbish bin. As far as I know, it's not worried about overpopulation or what sort of environment its kids will grow up in. My humanness sees me as an art gallery, watching others, watching walls. My humanness gives me dark thoughts of cruel behavior. You are in the States, a visa glitch, and there you remain, like Star Trek. I talk to you on a screen, your face half a second out of sync with your speech. I'm in the future. My Tuesday is already over, and I want to tell you all about it to prove my superiority. That lovely conceit of time that watched people travel from all over the world to be in Gisborne for the first sunrise of the new millennium. Remember how we all thought the sewer pipes would burst and the criminals would escape, or something like that? Y2K packs sent to every household because no one knew for certain what the numbers 2000 really meant somewhere. People, important people, cowered in bunkers, fearing the worst. Next up, we're welcoming Wichitawi Brown. Wichitawi currently attends Folsom High School with a future plan of studying at Dartmouth, to eventually follow a pathway into the House of Representatives, to be a voice and to be heard. Wichitawi admires the work of and has been changed by the important writings of Angie Thomas.
No, I wasn't meant to love and be loved. By Mirza Asadullah Khan Ghalib. Translated by Vijay Sheshadri. No, I wasn't meant to love and be loved. If I had lived longer, I would have waited longer. Knowing you are faithless keeps me alive and hungry. Knowing you faithful would kill me with joy. Delicate are you, and your vows are delicate too, so easily do they break. You are a laconic marksman. You leave me not dead, but perpetually dying. I want my friends to heal me, succor me. Instead, I get analysis. Configurations that would make stones drip blood are campfires compared to my anguish, two-headed, inescapable anguish. Love's anguish, or the anguish of time. Another dark, severing, incommunicable night. Death would be fine if I only died once. I would have liked a solitary death. Not this lavish funeral, this grave anyone can visit. You are mystical, Ghalib. And also, you speak beautifully. Are you a saint or just drunk as usual?
Next to the stage, Hannah Ruth Davidson. Hannah Ruth is a Flathead High School student with a love of Charles Dickens and the artful film adaptation of Anne of Green Gables. She has plans to be a nurse, perhaps in pediatrics or surgery, and lives by the adage, everything in moderation.
Pineapple by Ishwar Gupta, translated by Irvin Krishna Mehrotra. Such is their greed that no part is thrown away. Not crown, not base, not even the eyes, gouged out from the rind by the eye-eaters. But why do I speak ill of them? I'm no better. When I throw away the rind, my eyes fill with tears. I don't want to be called eye-eater by others. Add a dash of salt, a squeeze of lime, a spoon of sugar as divine as Chaitanya. Eat it, bit by bit. Let the mouth fill with juice, and watch the child Krishna dance and drool.
Next up, Isabel Sturgis. Isabel is a senior at Chrysalis School and an admirer of philosophy writings of Hannah Arendt, for her writing style and the way that she addresses the world's problems. Her first poem, Recitation, describes a feeling of realizing the value in poetry, and that really resonated with her.
Poetry by Marianne Moore. I too dislike it. There are things that are important beyond all this fiddle. Reading it, however, with a perfect contempt for it, one discovers in it, after all, a place for the genuine. Hands that can grasp, eyes that can dilate, hair that can rise if it must. These things are important not because a high-sounding interpretation can be placed upon them, but because they are useful. When they become so derivative as to become unintelligible, the same thing may be said for all of us, that we do not admire what we cannot understand. The bat, hanging on upside down or in quest of something to eat, elephants pushing, a wild horse taking a roll, a tireless wolf under a tree, the immovable critic twitching his skin like a horse that feels a flea, the baseball fan, the statistician, case after case could be cited, did one wish it. Nor is it reasonable to discriminate against business documents and school books. All these phenomena are important. One must make a distinction, however. When dragged into prominence by half-poets, the result is not poetry, nor till the poets among us can become literalists of the imagination, above insolence and triviality, and can present for inspection imaginary gardens with real toads in them, shall we have it. In the meantime, if you demand, on the one hand, the raw material of poetry in all its rawness, and that which is, on the other hand, genuine, then you are interested in poetry.
Next, we will introduce Robbie Holman, a sophomore at Butte High School. Robbie has his sights set on studying aeronautic engineering beyond high school. Brendan Long is his favorite author for his captivating characters, settings, and plots.
After working 60 hours again, for what reason? By Bob Hickok. The best job I had was moving a stone from one side of the road to the other. This required a permit, which required a bribe. The bribe took all my salary. Yet, because I hadn't finished the job, I had no salary. And to pay the bribe, I took a job moving the stone the other way. Because the official wanted his bribe, he gave me a permit for the second job. When I pointed out that the work would be best completed if I did nothing. He complimented my brain and wrote a letter to my employer suggesting promotion on stationery, bearing the wings of a raptor spread in flight over a mountain smaller than the bird. My boss, fearing my intelligence, paid me to sleep on the sofa and to take lunch with the official who required a bribe to keep anything from being done. When I told my parents, they wrote my brother to come home from university and be slapped on the back of the head. Dutifully, he arrived and bowed to receive his instruction, at which point sense entered his body and he asked what I could do by way of a job. I pointed out to him that there were stones everywhere, trying not to move. And all it took was a little gumption to be the man that didn't move them. It was harder to explain the intricacies of not obtaining a permit to not do this. Just yesterday, he got up at dawn and shaved, as if the lack of hair on his face has anything to do with the appearance of food on an empty table.
Next on stage will be Kina Anderson. Kina is a senior at Flathead High School, currently enjoying the work by the author Helen MacDonald, saying that her writing forms a clear bridge between the human and natural and presents intricate tensions found in our environment. Kina plans to major in biology with a pre-med emphasis.
The Properly Scholarly Attitude by Adelaide Crapsey. The poet pursues his beautiful theme, the preacher his golden beatitude, and I run after a vanishing dream, the glittering, will-o'-the-wispish gleam of the properly scholarly attitude, the highly desirable, the very advisable, the hardly acquirable, properly scholarly attitude. I envy the savage without any clothes who lives in a tropical latitude. It's little of general culture he knows. But then he escapes the worrisome woes of the properly scholarly attitude. The unceasingly sighed over, wept over, cried over, the futilely died over, properly scholarly attitude. I work and I work till I nearly am dead, and could say what the watchman said, that I could, but still, with a sigh and a shake of the head, you don't understand, it is ruthlessly said. The properly scholarly attitude, the eye to be sought for, wrought for, and fought for, the ne'er to be caught for. Properly scholarly attitude. I really am sometimes tempted to say that it's merely a glittering platitude, that people have just fallen into the way when lacking a subject to tell of the sway of the properly scholarly attitude. The easily preachable, spread eagle speechable, in practice, unreachable, properly scholarly attitude.
Next up is Olivia King. Olivia is a 9th grade student at Belt High School who plans to attend college in California towards the goal of becoming a graphic designer. She is a fan of the thrill of the horror and the author Stephen King.
The Star by Ann Taylor and Jane Taylor. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. When the blazing sun is gone, when he nothing shines upon, Then you show your little light, twinkle, twinkle, all the night. Then the traveler, in the dark, thanks you for your tiny spark, for he cannot see which way to go if you did not twinkle so. In the dark blue sky you keep, and often through my curtains peep, for you never shut your eye till the sun is in the sky. 'Tis your bright and tiny spark that lights the traveler through the dark. Though I know not what you are, twinkle, twinkle, little star.
Our 18th and final contestant, Lucy Johnstone, was unable to join us in Helena today. Our judges have electronically viewed and scored her recitations.
Round one. You made it. Students, how do you feel?
Yeah.
You should feel very proud of yourselves. I would say those were among some of the finest recitations I've seen in this room, so pat yourself on the back, and you just earned yourself a break. It doesn't say so on the program, but we did intend for a 15-minute break to happen about now, and we're a little bit ahead of schedule. So maybe we'll slice the difference a little bit and start up again at 11:25 with round two. How's that sound? Good? All right. Thank you, everyone. Just to kind of give you a heads up about this portion, we are going to need a little bit of time at the end of this round, after which we will announce the top 8 students going on to the final round. This may be the first time you're hearing this, so I'll tell you now that all students recite in the first 2 rounds, and then the third round we call the finals. So these are technically the semifinal rounds, and then we have one final round involving 8 of the 18 students competing at this year's state finals. So we're going to make that announcement before we take the lunch break to give those students who are going on to the third round a little heads up. And but before we make that announcement, we might have to have a little break time in there as well. So just a little bit of a, tip about where we're headed. So I would like to invite Aaliyah back to the stage, and I've asked her to do a little bit of sharing, because there's some things about her you need to know.
Hello again. I wanted to let you guys know that I was in those seats over at the Myrna, but for the last 2 years that I was in high school. So 2016 and 17, I was a state finalist in Montana, Poetry Out Loud. And it was a really, really formative experience for me. And I'm so grateful to be here today to introduce you and watch all of you guys' performances. To school down in Hamilton for middle school and high school, moved up to Missoula after I graduated, and once I moved there, I was going to college and somebody came up to me, some stranger, while I was walking to class, and told me that they had heard one of my poems back during my junior year recitation. They said that it was wonderful and they had been grateful to be able to hear me. And I hope that that happens to one of you, any of you one day, because you guys are all worth it. You guys are wonderful. These days, I'm writing poetry myself. I've always had a love for poetry, and I've probably been writing since the beginning of elementary school. I've just finished my first 2 short collection manuscripts within the last 6 months, and I'm very excited to share one of those poems with you later when all the judges and us are reciting some of our poems. Without further ado, we can introduce our Next recitation, that'll be Alette Whitcomb. Alette says she was drawn to her next poem because of how much we fear dark, even though bad things can happen in daylight just as much as it can happen in darkness. Saying we idolize light as if we are safe as long as it is daytime outside.
How Dark the Beginning by Maggie Smith. All we ever talk of is light. Let there be light. There was light then. Good light. But what I consider dawn is darker than all that. So many hours between the day receding and what we recognize as morning, the sun cresting like a wave that won't break over us, as if light were protected, as if no hearts were flayed, no bodies broken on a day like today. In any film, the sunrise tells us everything will be all right. Danger wouldn't dare show up now, dragging its shadow across the screen. We talk so much of light. Please, let me speak on behalf of the good dark. Let us talk of how dark the beginning of a day is.
Next up, we have Ryan Tier. As a person who loves the art of storytelling, he plans to become a scriptwriter and director in the future and lives by the motto, "The audience is king," always believing that he does as a performer or storyteller is for the sake of the audience's enjoyment and rarely for personal gain.
Translations from the English by George Starbuck. For Arthur Freeman, Pigfoot, with aces under, passes. The heat's on the hooker, drops on the lamb. Cops got Booker, who give a damn? The kid's been had, but not me yet. Dad's in his pad, no sweat. Margaret, are you drug? Cool it, Mag, sure it's a drag with all that green flaked out. Next thing you know, they'll be changing the color of bread. But look, chick, why panic? 70, 80 years, we'll all be dead. Roll with the kid, I did. Give it the old benefit of the doubt. I mean, leave schmeeves. You sure you ain't just feeling sorry for yourself? Lamb. Lamb, what makes you tick? You got a wind up, a battery powered, a flywheel plug in, or what? You made out real fur? You fall out of the window, you bust, you shrink, turn to a no-no, zip open and have pups? I bet you better than that. I bet you're put out by some other outfit. I bet you don't do nothing. I bet you some to eat. Daddy Ganders, Newfound Runes. Rain, rain, grow the hay, grow the weeds another day. If I die before I wake, skip it. Little boy blue, come blow. Camp man, learning a new instrument. What's with the old one? Where'd you get the new one? Found it in a haystack, man. Old Mother Hubbard, decently covered, went to her final reward. She had to laugh. Major was half empty and half kennel. Old Shep at it again, living on principle. I fired a missile up. It came down. Maybe it stayed up. Things ain't much like they used to be.
Next on stage, we have Gracie Peel Watson. Gracie finds her next poem intriguing in that it goes against the stereotypical thoughts about nature.
Another anti-pastoral by Vivi Francis. I want to put down what the mountain has awakened. My mouth full of grass, my curious tail. I want to stand still, but find myself moved patch by patch. There's a bleat in my throat. Words fail me here. Can you understand? I sink to my knees, tired or not. I now know the ragweed from the goldenrod and the blinding beauty of green. Don't you see? I am shedding my skins. I am a paper hive, a wolf spider, the creeping ivy, the ache of a birch, a heifer, a doe. I have fallen from my dream of progress. The clear-cut glass, the potted and balcony tree, the lemon-waxed wood over a marbled pillar, into my own nocturne. The lullabies I had forgotten. How could I know what slept inside? What would rend my fantasies to cut and up from this belly's wet, straw-strewn field? These soundings.
Now we have Maya there. Maya finds the commentary in her next poem very powerful.
Life Cycle of Common Man by Howard Nemerov. Roughly figured, this man of moderate habits, this average consumer of the middle class, consumed in the course of his average lifespan just under 500,000 cigarettes, 4,000 fifths of gin, and about a quarter as much vermouth. He drank maybe 100,000 cups of coffee, and counting his parents' share, it cost something like $500,000 to put him through life. How many beasts died to provide him with meat, belt, and shoes cannot be certainly said. But anyhow, it is in this way that a man travels through time, leaving behind him a lengthening trail of empty bottles and bones, of broken shoes, frayed collars and worn out or outgrown diapers and dinner jackets, silk ties and slickers. Given the energy and security thus achieved, he did what? The usual things, of course, the eating, dreaming, drinking, and begetting. And he worked for the money which was to pay for the eating, etc., which were necessary if he were to go on working for the money, etc., but chiefly he talked. As the bottles and bones accumulated behind him, the words proceeded steadily from the front of his face as he advanced into the silence and made it verbal. Who can tally the tale of his words? A lifetime would barely suffice for their repetition. If you merely printed all his commas, the result would be a very large volume. And the number of times he said, "Thank you," or "very little sugar, please," would stagger the imagination. There were also witticisms, platitudes, and statements beginning, "It seems to me," or "as I always say." Consider the courage in all that. And behold the man walking into deep silence with the ectoplastic cartoon's balloon of speech proceeding steadily out of the front of his face. The words borne along on the breath, which is his spirit, telling the numberless tale of his untold word, which makes the world his apple and forces him to eat.
Next, Rio Keelan. With his next poem, Rio was reeled in by its representation of how the forces of nature affect each other and use each other in this world.
Brother, Brother, I've Seen Some by Kabir, translated by Arvind Krishna Mehrotra. Brother, I've seen some astonishing sights. A lion keeping watch over pasturing cows. A mother delivered after her son was. A guru prostrated before his disciples. Fish spawning on treetops. A cat carrying away a dog. A gunny sack driving a bullock cart. A buffalo going out to graze, sitting on a horse. A tree with its branches in the earth, its roots in the sky. A tree with flowering roots. This verse, says Kabir, is your key to the universe, if you can figure it out.
Next on stage will be Lily Johnson.
The Affliction of Richard by Robert Bridges. Love not too much, but how, when thou hast made me such, and dost thy gifts bestow, how can I love too much? Though I must fear to lose and drown my joy and care, with all its thorns I choose the path of love and prayer. Though thou, I know not why, didst kill my childish trust, that breach with toil did I repair because I must, in spite of frightening schemes, with which the fiends of hell blaspheme thee in my dreams. So far, I have hoped well. But what the heavenly key, what marvel in me wrought shall quite exculpate thee? I have no shadow of thought. What am I that can claim the love from which began? My question, sad and vain, justifies thee to man.
Now we will introduce Mac Williams.
A Locked House by W.D. Snodgrass. As we drove back, crossing the hill, the house still hidden in the trees, I always thought, a fool's fear that it might have caught fire. Someone could have broken in, as if things must have been too good here. Still, we always found it locked tight, safe and sound. I mentioned that once as a joke. No doubt we spoke of the absurdity to fear some dour god's jealousy of our good fortune. From the farm next door, our neighbors saw no harm came to the things we cared for here. What did we have to fear? Maybe I should have thought. All such things rot, fall, barns, houses, furniture. We too are stronger than we were apart. We've grown together. Everything we own can burn. We know what counts. Some such idea. We'd said as much. We'd watched friends driven to betray, felt that love drained away some self they need. We'd said love like a growth can feed on hate. We turn in and disguise. We warned ourselves that you might despise me, hate all we both love best. None of us ever guessed. The house still stands, locked as it stood, untouched a good 2 years after you went. Some things passed in the settlements, some things slipped away. Enough's left that I still come back sometimes. The thefts and vandalism were our own. Maybe we should have known.
Next up is Gabriella Shaw. Gabriella's favorite film is the classic The Conjuring and The Witch. She holds a strong desire to pursue post-high school studies in gemology.
I Find No Peace by Sir Thomas Wyatt. I find no peace, and all my war is done. I fear and hope. I burn and freeze like ice. I fly above the wind, yet can I not arise? And not I have. And all the world I seize on. I locketh, I loseth, nor locketh, holdeth me in prison, and holdeth me not. Yet can I scape no wise? Without eyen, I see, without tongue, I plain. I desire. Oh my God. I desire to perish, and yet I ask health. I love another, and thus I hate myself. I feed me in sorrow and laugh in all my pain. Likewise displeaseth me both life and death.
Next will be Isabel Bennett.
The Ragged and the Beautiful by Sophia Sinclair. Doubt is a storming bowl crashing through the blue wide windows of myself. Here, in the heart of my heart, where it never stops raining, I am an outsider looking in. But in the garden of my good days, no body is wrong. Here every flower grows ragged and sideways and always beautiful. We bloom with the outcasts, our soon-to-be sunlit, we dreamers. We are strange and unbelonging, yes. We are just enough of ourselves to catch the wind in our feathers and fly so perfectly away.
Next up is Taryn Lodge. Taryn's second poem selection served as the inspiration for her Voice of Democracy speech this year.
The American Soldier by Philip Furnell. A picture from the life. To serve with love and to shed your blood, approved maybe above, but here below examples show 'tis dangerous to be good. Lord Oxford. Deep in a vale, a stranger now to arms, too poor to shine in courts, too proud to beg, he who once warred on Saratoga's plains sits musing o'er his scars and wooden leg, remembering still the toil of former days. To other hands he sees his earnings paid. They share the due reward. He feeds on praise, lost in the abyss of want, misfortune's shade. Far, far from domes where splendid tapers glare, 'tis his from dear bought peace, no wealth to win. Removed alike from courtly, cringing squires, the great man's levy and the proud man's grin. Sold are those arms which once on Britons blazed, when flushed with conquest, to the charge they came. That power repelled and freedom's fabric raised, she leaves her soldier, famine, and a name.
Next up is Peyton Waters.
The Affliction of Richard by Robert Bridges. Love, not too much, but how, when thou hast made me such, and dost thy gifts bestow, how can I love too much? Though I must fear to lose, and drown my joy in care, with all its thorns I choose the path of love and prayer. Though thou, I know not why, didst kill my childish trust, that breach with toil did I repair, because and I frightens, which the fiends of hell blaspheme thee in my dreams. So far, I have hoped well. But what the heavenly key, what marvel in me wrought, shall quite exculpate thee? I have no shadow of thought. What am I that complain? The love from which began my question, sad and vain, justifies thee to man.
Next on stage is Wishitali Brown.
ABC Darien, requiring further examination of Anglican seraphim. Subjugation of a Wild Indian Reservation by Natalie Diaz. Angels don't come to the reservation. Bats, maybe, or owls. Boxy modeled things. Coyotes, too. They all mean the same thing. Death. And death eats angels, I guess, because I haven't seen an angel fly through this valley ever. Gabriel? Never heard of him. Know a guy named Gabe, though. He came through here one powwow and stayed. Typical Indian. Sure, he had wings, jailbird that he was. He flies around in stolen cars. Wherever he stops, kids grow like gourds from women's bellies. Like I said, no Indian I've ever heard of has ever been or seen an angel. Maybe in a Christmas pageant or something. Nazarene Church holds one every December, organized by Pastor John's wife. It's no wonder Pastor John's son is the angel. Everyone knows angels are white. Quit bothering with angels, I say. They're no good for Indians. Remember what happened last time some white god came floating across the ocean? Truth is, there may be angels. But if there are angels up there, living on clouds or sitting on thrones across the sea, wearing velvet robes and golden rings, drinking whiskey from silver cups, we're better off if they stay rich and fat and ugly and exactly where they are, in their own distant heavens. You better hope you never see angels on the res. If you do, they'll be marching you off to Zion or Oklahoma or some other hell they've mapped out for us.
Next up, Hannah Ruth. Hannah Ruth felt a special connection with her state finals poem, saying, "When I read them, I could feel the words," which doesn't happen to me often.
In Praise of My Bed by Meredith Holmes. At last I can be with you, grinding hours since I left your side. The labor of being fully human, working my opposable thumb, talking, walking upright. Now I have unclasped, unzipped, stepped out of, husked, soft, a beer only. I do nothing but point my bare feet into your clean smoothness. Feel your quiet strength the whole length of my body. I close my eyes, hear myself moan. So grateful to be held this way.
Next up, Isabel Sturgis. Isabel's second poem reminds her of fresh starts and new opportunities, and connected to it having, as she says, most certainly been one to need a fresh start.
Dawn by Ella Higginson. The soft-toned clock upon the stair chimed 3. Too sweet for sleep, too early yet to rise. In restful peace, I lay with half-closed eyes, watching the tender hours go dreamily. The tide was flowing in. I heard the sea shivering along the sands, while yet the skies were dim, uncertain, as the light that lies beneath the fretwork of the wild rose tree within the thicket gray. The chandelier sent drowsy calls across the slumberous air. In solemn silence, I hear my own heartbeat, then broad and deep and fair, trembling in its new birth from heaven's womb. one crimson shaft of dawn sank through my room.
Next up, Robbie Holman.
Epilogue by Robert Browning. At the midnight, in the silence of the sleep time, when you set your fancies free, will they pass to where? By death, fools think, imprisoned. Lo, he lie who once so loved you, who you loved so. Pity me? Oh, to love so, be so loved, yet so mistaken. What on earth should I do with the slothful, with the mawkish, the unmanly, like the aimless, helpless, hopeless, did I drivel? Being who? The one who never turned his back, but marched breast forward, never doubted clouds would break, never dreamed, though right were worsted, wrong would triumph. Fall to rise, far are baffled to fight better. Sleep to wake? No. At noonday, in the bustle of man's work time, greet the unseen with a cheer. Bid him forward, breast to back, as either should be. Strive and thrive, cry speed, fight on, fair ever, there as here.
Next on stage, Kenna Anderson.
Ikebana by Kathy Song. To prepare the body, aim for the translucent perfection you find in the sliced shavings of a pickled turnip. In order for this to happen, you must avoid the sun. Protect the face under a paper parasol until it is bruised white like the skin of lilies. Use white soap from a blue porcelain dish for this. Restrict yourself. Eat the whites of things, tender bamboo shoots, the veins of the young iris, the clouded eye of a fish. Then wrap the body as if it were a perfumed gift, in pieces of silk held together with invisible threads like a kite, weighing no more than a handful of crushed chrysanthemums, light enough to float in the wind. You want the effect of koi, moving through water. When the light leaves the room, twist lilacs into the lacquered hair piled high like a complicated shrine. There should be tiny bells inserted somewhere in the web of hair to imitate crickets, singing in a hidden grove. Reveal the nape of the neck, your beauty spot. Hold the arrangement. If your spine slacks and you feel faint, remember,
the hand-picked flowers set in the front alcove which, just this morning, you so skillfully wired into place. How poised it is. Petal and leaf curving like a fan, the stem snipped and wedged into the metal base to appear like a spontaneous accident.
Next up, Olivia King.
Envy by Mary Lamb. This rose tree is made not to bear, the violet blue but lily fair, this sweet mignonette. And if this tree were discontent, or would it wish to change its natural bent? In vain it would fret. And should it fret, you would suppose, it ne'er had seen its own red rose. And after gentle shower, how could you never see its rose's scent? Or could ne'er be discontent with its own pretty flower? Like blind this tree is, as I've imagined this could be. All envious persons are. With care and culture, you may find a pretty flower in your own mind. Some talent that is rare.
Again, Lucy Johnstone was unable to join us here in Helena today. Our judges have electronically viewed and scored her recitations, and that concludes the second round.
All right then, as I mentioned, 8 of the 18 competitors in state finals this year will go on to compete in the final round this afternoon, beginning at 1:30. And as I call those names, I would like the students whose names I'm calling to join me up here on stage, please. Ryan Tyatt. Maya Dare. Mac Williams. Isabel Bennett. Peyton Waters. Wichitawi Brown. Hannah Ruth Davidson. And Kenna Anderson. Congratulations to our top 8 finalists who will compete with their third poem this afternoon. Congratulations. Well, thank you again, everybody, for all the support of this program. This last portion, the finals portion of the day, goes pretty quickly, but it's the important round. And I really want you to feel that you have made it. all 8 of our finalists. You are all extraordinary reciters. So congratulations again for making it to this final round. Again, after this, these 8 recitations, the finals round, our judges and assorted other team players on Team POL are going to share some poetry with you during the calculation portion of the day, and that's always a sweet spot, so I'm looking forward to both parts of our afternoon. So that's where we're headed. The teacher in me just needs to tell you, what the game plan is, so there you have it. I think we're ready to begin. Reciters, are you ready? All right. Alita, come on up.
Introducing finalist Ryan Tia.
Revenge by Letitia Elizabeth Landon. I gaze upon her rose-wreathed hair, and gaze upon her smile. Seems as you drank the very air her breath perfumed the while, and wake for her the gifted line that wild and witching lay, and swear your heart is as a shrine that only owns her sway. 'Tis well, I am revenged at last. Mock you that scornful cheek. The eye averted as you passed spoke more than words could speak. Aye, now by all the bitter tears that I have shed for thee, the racking doubts, the burning fears, avenged they well may be. By the nights past in sleepless care, the days of endless woe, all that ye have taught my heart to bear, all that yourself will know. I would not wish to see you laid in an early tomb. I should forget how you betrayed and only weep your doom. But this is fitting punishment, to live and love in vain. Oh, my wrung heart, be thou content and feed upon his pain. Go thou, and watch her lightest sigh, thine own it will not be, and bask beneath her sunny eye, it will not turn on thee. 'Tis well, the rack, the chain, the wheel, far better hast thou improved. Even I could almost pity feel, for thou art not beloved.
Next up, finalist Maya Dare.
April Midnight by Arthur Symons. Side by side through the streets at midnight, roaming together through the tumultuous night of London in the miraculous April weather. Roaming together under the gaslight, day's work over. How the spring calls to us here in the city, calls to the heart from the heart of a lover. Cool, the wind blows fresh in our faces, cleansing, entrancing. After the heat and the fumes and the footlights, where you dance, and I watch your dancing. Good it is to be here together, good to be be roaming, even in London, even at midnight. Lover-like in a lover's gloaming. You, the dancer, and I, the dreamer. Children together, wandering, lost in the night of London, in the miraculous April weather.
Next on stage, finalist Mac Williams.
After the Disaster by Abigail Deutsch. New York City, 2001. One night, not long after the disaster, as our train was passing Astor, the car door opened with a shudder and a girl came flying down the aisle. Hair that looked to be all feathers and a half-moon smile, making open air of our small car. The crowd ignored her, or they muttered, "Hey, excuse me," when they passed her as the train had stopped to wreck her. The specter crowed, "Excuse me," swiftly turned and ran back up the corridor. And stopped for me. We dove under the river. She took my head between her fingers, squeezing till the birds began to stir. And then from out my eyes and ears a flock came forth. I couldn't think or hear or breathe or see within that feather world. So silently, I thanked her. Such things were common after the disaster.
Next finalist, Isabel Bennett.
Sonnet 18, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day, by William Shakespeare. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease have all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often in his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
Next finalist, Peyton Waters.
At Noon by Reginald Gibbons. The thick-walled rooms cave darkness. Cool in summer soothes by saying, this is the truth. Not the taut cicada-strummed daylight. Rest here, out of the flame. The thick airs stirred by the fan's 4 slow-moving spoons. Under the house, a stone has its feet in deep water. Outside, the sun god, dressed in this life as a lizard, abruptly rises, stiff legs, and descends blasé towards the shadows.
Next finalist, Wichita Brown.
We Are Not Responsible by Harriet Mumble. We are not responsible for your lost or stolen relatives. We cannot guarantee your safety if you disobey our instructions. We do not endorse the causes or claims of people begging for handouts. We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone. Your ticket does not guarantee that we will honor your reservation. In order to facilitate our procedures, please limit your carrying on. Before taking off, please extinguish all smoldering resentments. If you cannot understand English, you will be moved out of the way. In the event of a loss, you better look out for yourself. Your insurance was canceled because we can no longer handle your frightful claims. Our handlers lost your luggage and we are unable to find the key to your legal case. You were detained for interrogation because you fit the profile. You are not presumed to be innocent if the police have reason to suspect that you are carrying a concealed wallet. It is not our fault that you were born wearing a gang color. It is not our obligation to inform you of your rights. Step aside, please, while our officer inspects you of your bad attitude. You have no rights. We are bound to respect. Please remain calm. Or we can't be held responsible for what happens to you.
Next finalist, Hannah Ruth Davidson.
Those Winter Sundays by Robert Hayden. Sundays, too, my father got up early and put his clothes on in the blue, black cold. Then, with cracked hands that ached from labor in the weekday weather, made banked fires blaze. No one ever thanked him. I'd wake and hear the cold splintering, breaking, and when the rooms were warm, he'd call, and slowly I would rise and dress, fearing the chronic angers of that house. Speaking indifferently to him who had driven out the cold, and polished my good shoes as well. What did I know? What did I know of love's austere and lonely offices?
And our final finalist, Kenna Anderson.
In Heaven by Stephen Crane. In heaven, some little blades of grass stood before God. What did you do? Then all save one of the little blades began eagerly to relate the merits of their lives. This one stayed a small way behind, ashamed. Presently, God said, "And what did you do?" The little blade answered, "Oh, my Lord, memory is bitter to me, for if I did good deeds, I know not of them." Then God, in all his splendor, arose from his throne. "Oh, best little blade of grass," he said.
I really love this part of the day because not only will you hear some more great poems from our judges, but some nuggets, some words of wisdom, maybe even some funny stuff. Who would like to come off first? Oh yeah, you take your time. We're fine. Our current Montana Poet Laureate, everyone, Mark Gibbett.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here as always. I've been coming to this now for, well, since it started. You said 18 years. It's amazing. And each year, Aaron and I were just talking, because we've been doing this for a while, it seems like it just gets better. Maybe it's just because we haven't been around it a year or something, I don't know, but it's been 3 years this time. And you guys are all just magnificent. You are. I swear to God, I don't know who's going to win. But it's amazing. And it's a great crop, and everybody's so different. And that's what I love about this program, is that, what I love about poetry, is that every poet is different, every voice is different. How do you rate one over another? I don't know how you do that. Just good is good, and you guys are good. And somebody's going to wind up with the most points. But anyway, so I will stop and give you a recitation, I hope, which reminds me of last year we did this virtually. They took a film, you know, and so I met this guy, this filmographer, and I stood there. I just tried to do something new because I knew all these in my head. Certain ones I thought, I'll do a new one. So I memorized this thing. I did 8, maybe 9 recordings. Okay, cut. No, start that over. So I understand what it feels like to, not know what you're doing and have to stop, and it's just like, oh, how frustrating. So here's a couple, and the first one is one that somebody else did. A good friend of mine, Montana poet, and a guy I consider to be a mentor, Ed Leahy from Butte. I'm going to do one of his because I know it, and I hope you like it. Ed called this his Ars Poetica, which is his poem on poetry. It's called Gimp O'Leary's Iron Works. And as Ed used to love to say before he did it, you can read that 2 ways. Gimp O'Leary's Iron Works, or Gimp O'Leary's Iron Works. You hear a lot of lies about O'Leary, but he could seal a crack in steel no matter what the size. His arc welder would strike white fire, and a bead of blue-black rod would slide along between cherry streaks, and acrid smoke would curl away to leave clean, married steel. Not too frail or buttered up, but straight and strong, hard as mill-forged rail. Of course, you might say, don't use that example as a metaphor for poetry. Welding is a matter of utility, and you'd be right. Still, I remember the look on his face when he'd lift his great helmet and sneak up on the finished job with his unprotected eyes. It was always between him and the piece of steel, a struggle of molecules and will. Often others would say to him, damn good job, or some such thing. And if it was, he'd grin and look again as if he thought the natural light would show a flaw or bridge that didn't fuse. Convinced, I guess, that in his struggle with the steel, he could seldom really win. He knew perfection could conceal the wound beneath the arc of his art. I liked him for that. So I'll do one of mine because, gotta do one of mine. This is a poem I wrote after getting the news that someone who I had the utmost respect for on all kinds of levels had taken their own life. And it was just something that, some of us have gone through, and what do you deal with it? So I dealt with it by trying to work it out in a poem. So the title of the poem is Suicide Note. I am slick bear grass on an alpine slope, the talons of a red-tailed hawk. I am cottonwood bark floating in an eddy. A double rainbow over Flathead Lake, I am cool granite skin. The ravens caw, a mist on Marias Pass. I am comets, the moon, my father's ash. I am bloody, a swathed mosquito. I am frost and dust, a gravel road, the embers of a forest fire. I am fresh-turned dirt in the April sun. I am the reason you fear the dark. I am licorice, baby, and whiskey breath. I am leather, iron, sweat. I am cinnamon toast and whispering voices that hiss, there is no forgiveness. I am music that puts you on the kitchen floor of the house where you were born. I am Christ, Hitler, Blackie Marquette, buttercups, sauerkraut, and beer. I am chemotherapy, cockleburs on socks, sunrise over the Mission Range. I am the bones of pottery and thunder. I am wind blowing in stone. I'm changing my name to plastic, cold as my blood, clear as a storm. Thank you.
Such a gift to be here in person with all of you.
And I have tremendous respect for the internalization of poetry that you all showed. Memorization is one thing, but to embody that poem, all these poems that you did, is so inspiring to me. I've memorized one poem in my entire life, and I can't stand up here today and tell it to you. That's how difficult that process is. So thank you for bringing your immense love of poetry to this stage. I wanted to talk a bit about collaboration, because my work as a poet is because of all of the support that I've had in the Montana community. I have had so many wonderful mentors. Got the chance to speak with Mark for his program. If you happen to catch it, he's been documenting poets around Montana and having conversations with them. And that's my favorite thing to do as a journalist. I'm always very curious about other people's stories, so I think poetry, for me, has been my most difficult form of art because it is very personal. So I thought I would bring a new book that's out by poet Charles Finn, who is in Havre, and Barbara Michelman, she's a photographer. And when they took this book to publishers, the general sentiment was, yeah, I don't want to read this if your work needs a photo, to stand. Your work should stand on its own. And their process is a poem and a photo, when they came together, became so much more. So I loved that example of collaborative art, because there's so much that we can share with one another when we come together. And so writing is a lonely process, and poetry can feel like a very solo endeavor, but this is a great example of how you can come together and share your work and your words, and it becomes so much more. This one is the title of the book, On a Benediction of Wind, and the photograph here Barbara took, and these are Charles Finn's words. On a benediction of wind. On a benediction of wind, they watched the cranes leave, and their feelings reached to each other like the minds of migratory birds communing. Above them, the sky, abundant, would stop at nothing. He turned to her, and she said, jettison everything. Oh, how little time we have, And what will be left of us when we leave? A house on a hill? Some wood smoke? Don't laugh, he said. Life is a rare vase carried by a child, as she laughed, tossing his most trusted fears like pennies into the sea. He watched the tide recede, leaving her ankles, her toes. Wash the axle grease of now from your hands, she said. Take them. Together we shall strike out for the northernmost territories of love. He watched the tide come back in. Like the cranes, he asked. Like the wild geese. Yes. So that is On a Benediction of Wind, Charles Finn and Barbara Michelman. And then in the spirit of insane vulnerability that you've all displayed, I have a work that I've actually only read out loud once. I had the gift of sharing this with Mark, and so I thought, why not? Give me 1 second while I access technology. And actually, that's not true. I've shared it twice. The first time was in a structure called Tomb. It was a wooden box built on the Pythagorean theory, and it was 3 nested boxes within. And so in the center box, if you can imagine it being only as big as this, and we had a violinist in the center. And then I was in the second box that you could actually walk around. And the idea of Tomb is that even though you're constricting, you feel very expansive. So within this structure that ended up being, I think, 12 feet by 12 feet, forget the numbers because I'm a poet, not into math. It was a very freeing thing, but I had so much between me and the audience, so this is the most vulnerable thing that you can do, I think. You don't have a guitar, you know, at least I have a phone and a book to hold up, but thank you again for everyone sharing your words today. And this one doesn't even have a title. You are here, eons of destruction and resurrection, the everyday survival. This way we die a bit at a time, the sacrificial limbs, one arm dead in the night, random acts of affection given to pleasure, to pain. He wants to carry a gun because everyone else is. If something were to happen, we would just die, she says. We would just die. I've tried to kill those seeds you planted, each time heaving as if I could be your God. As if I could be anything but your father, licking the salt from your cheeks, forgetting your bones are brittle like mine, like the girl who pinned you down, first touched you while your ribs screamed. Since then, how many ribs have you broken, looking for that missing piece? The white and yellow of you showing. I can still picture that nurse, her face cast down with a red cross at her arms, holding all this grief like a prize. When you died, we did not gather. Did I love you enough to switch places? This is what it costs. Thank you.
Hi. You're right, it turns on when I don't. So if I need to mute myself, I can just be my own censor. In the spirit of collaboration, thank you, Anna, for those lovely words. My name's Julyn. I am primarily a dancer and a movement artist, and I also work in multimedia. I teach visual arts and dance and movement. I don't generally share my poetry. It is very personal, very vulnerable. And Monica assured me that I could come up without a poem to recite. She shared with me that she resuscitated? She recited a poem that she had memorized in the first grade, and the only thing that sprang to my mind was, there once was a man from Nantucket, and I'm gonna let everybody fill in the rest of that poem, and you learn a lot about yourself that way. But I really do appreciate everybody sharing, the finalists and the semifinalists. As a person who is a performer, who gets up in front of people and shares my art, I know that there are the many different lives of an art form. There's the poem that lives on the page, there is the poem that lives in you when you recite it, and then there's the poem and its life when you share it with an audience, and all three of those can be very different things, and all three of those are incredibly valuable. So thank you for sharing. Thank you to Monica and Montana Arts Council for organizing this event. And great job to everybody today. Really, really wonderful.
I watched y'all do this, so I think I can figure it out. My name's Aaron, and I've been doing this for quite a few years, like Monica said, and every year I walk out of here literally rejuvenated by these kids reading this poetry that they've memorized. And as far as I'm concerned, all of you all are winners for even doing this. I find it pretty remarkable. I'd also like to thank Monica and the Poetry Out Loud people for putting this on every year. I think it's a great thing for this state. And I think it's also important to thank the ASL interpreters here. This literally is poetry in motion. And I'm not a poet, or really a reciter of poetry. But I do know this one poem by this guy who won the Nobel Prize. So he must be pretty good. It's all right, Ma, I'm only bleeding. Bob Dylan. Darkness at the break of noon, shadows even the silver spoon, the handmade blade, the child's balloon, eclipses both the sun and moon. To understand you know too soon, there is no sense in trying. Pointed threats they bluff with scorn, suicide remarks are torn. From the fool's gold mouthpiece, the hollow horn that plays wasted words and proves to warn. He not busy being born is busy dying. Temptation's page flies out the door. You follow, find yourself at war. You watch waterfalls of pity roar. You feel them moan, but unlike before, you discover that you just be one more person crying. So don't fear if you hear a foreign sound to your ear. It's all right, Ma, I'm only sighing. Some war victory, some downfall, private reasons, great or small, can be seen in the eyes of those that call to make all that should be killed to crawl, while others say don't hate nothing at all except hatred. Disillusioned words like bullets bark as human gods aim for their mark, make everything from toy guns that spark to flesh-colored Christs that glow in the dark. It's easy to see without looking too far. Not much is really sacred. Preachers preach of evil fates, and teachers teach that knowledge waits can lead to $100 plates, and goodness hides behind the gates. And sometimes even the President of the United States must have to stand naked. And though the rules of the road have been lodged, it's only people's games that you got to dodge. And it's all right, Ma, I can make it. Advertising signs con you into thinking you're the one that can do what's never been done, that can win what's never been won. Meantime, life outside goes on all around you. And you lose yourself and you reappear and you suddenly find you got nothing to fear. Alone you stand with nobody near when a trembling, distant voice, unclear, startles your sleeping ears to hear. Someone thinks they really found you. And a question in your nerves is lit, yet you know there is no answer fit to satisfy and sure you not to quit, to keep it in your mind and not forget that it is not he or she or them or it that you belong to. And though the masters make the rules for the wise men and the fools. It's all right, Ma. I got nothing to live up to. For them that must obey authority, that they do not respect in any degree and despise their jobs, their destinies, speak jealously of them that are free and do what they do just to be nothing more than something they invest in. While some on principle baptize to strict party platform ties, social clubs and drag disguise, outsiders they can freely criticize, tell them nothing except who'd idolize and say God bless him. While one who sings with his tongue on fire gargles in the rat race choir, bent out of shape from society's pliers, who cares not to come up any higher, he'd rather get you down in the hole that he's in. But I mean no harm nor put fault on anyone who lives in a vault. It's all right, Ma, if I can't please him. Old lady judges watch people in pairs, limited in sex they dare to push fake morals, insult and stare, while money doesn't talk, it swears, obscenity, who really cares, propaganda all is phony. While them that trust what they cannot see with a killer's pride, security, it blows their mind most bitterly. For them that think death's honesty won't fall upon them naturally, life sometimes must get lonely. And my eyes collide head-on with false goals. I scoff at pettiness, it plays so rough. Walk upside down inside handcuffs, kick my legs to crash it off, and say, okay, I've had enough. What else can you show me? And if my thought dreams could be seen, they'd probably put my head in a guillotine. But it's all right, Mom. It's life, and life only.
All right, so you guys all memorize poems from people that you don't know. I am here to recite a couple of my own poems that I need to have on paper to read to you. Anyways, this first poem, or both of these poems, are from my manuscript called Pearlswell. This first one is about learning to take care after a time of pain and loss. Trip the light fantastic. Sway a hand into the scene of perhaps, scraping a painted nail over the vision of could, a copper-painted wink, a flick of a gilded wrist. Another, in startlingly strange semblance to self, offers out a held fist, eyes sheared under plum veil, bearing the gift of a handful of faith and pinked pony beads. So candy cherry as to provoke a deep desire on rosed and sticky chapstick lips, holding back temptation by ways of distraction. The kitchen sink is empty. The baseboards are washed. I even cut off the lock at the point of the curl. I'm cleaner now only so I could be more raw. Raw only so I can flit about in a ballroom genuine and catch the scent of divinity at the last frame of the twirl. Scribbled of thank yous and odes held under respective covers in confidence. A strawberry milkshake, a ribbon-tied waist, and an alabaster petticoat. The swift and airy delight as the CD trills on and skips, and I trip the light fantastic on my own. And this last poem will be about my own personal process in writing and includes a little character. This is medieval 70s. If I'm lucky, I will catch it under an early light and combine it after it splinters under the impact of my grasp as crab shells, I'm sure, through time. And I'll bring it together with cardamom syrup, mumbling with a conviction for a construction that I'm wound taut to with twine, enigmatic, slain under a pigmented stroke of citrine, with sincere hope, only kissed lightly of naivety. Lamp glow wanes into a silver crescent before preparing for bed, yawns with a murmur, and slips into silk stockings and silver chain link, not even for the world. Held in a jasmine mist beneath a deep wool eve, as if it's a faith. Her name is Perelise, a dream vision siren who sings in a low caw of quartz cliffs, the sharp squawks of seabirds, and of waves that fray into foam where briny canopies rise into thunder. The jig we sweep our skirts round to, where the twirl perpetuates itself. What on this good earth is without a spot? The whisper brews on the fruit, thread of woes strung through centuries, the abstract ache. It's even the ink underneath my fingernail. So, these past couple months I've been working on a pretty large project of folding 1,000 paper cranes, and I have one of these for each of you. And each one of these has a little scroll in their wing with a small snippet line from one of my poems, a longer one. So they're all a part of one longer poem, and you all get a little slice.
Yay! Could all of the contestants that are still here please come up to the stage? Everyone? Not just the final answer, but everybody. Might have to step back just a little bit. It's okay with that microphone. Thank you. I know we had a few people that had to head back because of roads and whatnot. Again, wow. You were all just absolutely marvelous was the best word I heard to describe it. I mean, it was really a wonderful, wonderful day for all of us that got to witness your recitation. So thank you from all of us for everything you did today. It was a beautiful thing. I think Aaliyah's going to have you pick your crane.
It's
Just
like
walk down the line.
Like a fortune cookie.
Thank you for doing that, Aaliyah.
Is that everybody?
While she's continuing to give her gift, we have a certificate for you that I hope you will hang proudly, put it in your scrapbook, and have great, great memories of this weekend. So, Alette Wickham, Ryan, Kiet, okay, Gracie, I have two versions. Is Gracie still here? Maya. Yeah. Congratulations. Matt Williams. Gabriella Shaw. Isabel Beck. Karen Lodge. Peyton Waters. Congratulations. All right. I can wait on this next part if you want me to. No? Okay. It's the part I love and the part I dread, all wrapped into one. First, I need to kind of give you the what's what. Our state recognizes the top 3 winners. The National Poetry Out Loud program, however, offers prizes to the top 2. So we'll have a 3rd place winner announced momentarily,
The second place winner will receive a gift of $100 and $200 in poetry, books, and supplies for their schools. The state champion will receive $200 and $500 in poetry, books, and supplies for their school, and an all-expense-paid trip to Washington, D.C. to participate in National Poetry Out Loud. So one student from each state, very much like the National Spelling Bee, that's how it goes down. So one of you is about to head to Washington, D.C., and it's my job to tell you who that is. All right, so first of all, there's some high scores. Isabel Bennett is our third place winner at 395 points. Hannah Ruth Davidson is our runner-up at 429 points. And our state champion at 437 points is Wichitawi Brown.